And students, could you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And a couple of things before we get started. Mr. Medancy is not here this evening due to the fact his daughter, he's with his daughter right now who had surgery today. So on an ACL and MCL and meniscus. So it's more important, family first. He's with his daughter. Mr. Williams is in Poland. And Mr. Oshana had a family, yeah, he's in Poland for work. And Mr. Oshana had a family situation that he had to take care of this evening, so they will not be here tonight. Mr. Carson, you're going to be leaving early because you're going to go see your daughter cheerlead at the high school, correct?
That is
Okay.
correct.
Fabulous.
So I will excuse myself mid-meeting.
Okay. Family first, always.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'd like to add an item to the agenda.
Okay.
The student expulsion under 10R.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
One other thing, is there any opportunity for any of us to leave early also, or it was just?
Do you have a daughter cheerleading?
No, I'm
Okay.
his daughter. I'm not cheerleading.
Well,
Okay.
all right, I'm here.
Okay.
Dang
Yes,
it.
thank you.
That was good, Dave.
Okay.
Nice try, Dad.
I would like to ask for a moment of silence for the passing of some former employees. For Francis, also known as Franny Falco, who passed away on October 20th of this year. Mr. Falco started as a substitute crossing guard in 2016 and then became the regular crossing guard for Daranowski Elementary School until his resignation this past summer. Joseph Orsine passed away on October 23rd, 2022. Mr. Orsine was hired in September 1952 and taught phys ed for 39 years. While working at Southington, he also served as basketball, football, baseball, and track coach throughout his career until his retirement in June of 1991. And lastly, for Kathleen McGrath, former principal of Southington High School, who passed away on October 26th. Ms. McGrath began her Southington Public Schools career as a language arts teacher, then assistant principal, and then in 2002, she became the first woman to be named principal of Southington High School. A moment of silence for them all, please. Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes of October 13th.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next item. Communication, public communication, communication from our student board representatives.
Good evening, board. We will start as usual with the report from the high school. The SHS Homecoming Dance will take place on November 18th in the high school's cafeteria. Only juniors and seniors from SHS will be allowed to attend. NHS had its fall induction on October 20th. 30 more students were inducted into the organization. We would like to thank Mr. Krakow and Mr. Medancy for their attendance at this event. The first quarter at Southington High School ended Thursday, November 3rd, and as college deadlines start to come up for many of our seniors, we just wanted to say good luck to all and that you're all making the Blue Knights proud. The robotics team will be heading to their first VEX tournament of the season this Saturday at Daniel Hand High School. We wish the 4 teams representing the Cyber Knights good luck. The high school's drama club will be presenting the 24th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee on December 2nd and 3rd. The ticket will be $15. The show is packed with comedy and tragedy, and audience members even get to come up on stage and be a part of the show. We hope to see you there. The Blue Knights Marching Band would like to thank everyone for their support this season. A few weekends ago, we held the 29th annual Music of the Night competition, which was an incredible success thanks in part to all of our parent volunteers. 2 weekends ago, the band competed at the New England State Championships held in New Britain, where they came in third, and last weekend they headed down to the MetLife Stadium for their national competition, where they came in ninth. The band's annual Veterans concert took place last night, and they are very thankful for everyone who attended.
All right, so I'm going to be talking about the sports report. So the girls volleyball team, which recently won the CCC League Championship Tournament, hosts Fairfield Ward this evening in the second round of the CIAC Class LL tournament in the West Gym. Also, the Blue Knights field hockey team is having its best record ever, and the team defeated Fairfield Ludlow 3-2 in a thrilling overtime match yesterday. The Blue Knights field hockey team will be hosting New Canaan in the state quarterfinals tomorrow at 2 p.m. The girls soccer team hosts Trumbull today in the second round of the CIAC girls soccer tournament at Fontana Field, which they won 4-0, so congratulations to them. And following the girls soccer playoff match right now, the football team is hosting Conard in its annual Military Appreciation Day game on the eve of Veterans Day. Also, today the diving members of the girls swimming team compete in the CIA Diving Championship at Sheehan High School. This Saturday morning, the girls swimming team competes in the CIAC Class LL meet at West Hartford's Cornerstone Pool. The girls cross-country team finished in 5th place at the CIAC Class LL meet and 12th place in the State Open Championship last week. All Blue Knights ball sport team qualified for the postseason championship this fall, including the boys soccer team, who unfortunately lost in the first round of the tournament to Norwalk this past Monday. But congratulations to all the Blue Knights teams, and thank you for the support that you have been giving to our teams for the state championships.
I'll start off our reports from the other schools in the district. From Thalberg School had a cereal food drive last week. We exceeded our goal of 900 boxes and donated 927 boxes of cereal to Southington Community Services. As a school finale, we set up a cereal box domino run through the halls of Thalberg. It was a great way to have some fun while helping members of our Southington community. From Kelly, on Wednesday, November 9th, Kelly Elementary School honored veterans with a wonderful in-school program in the morning, and then a vibrant car parade for veterans through the Kelly School driveway in the afternoon. In the morning, we had close to 30 veterans who are family members of Kelly School students in attendance, as well as 4 members of our town Veterans Committee. They all enjoyed breakfast, followed by a recognition program honoring them that concluded the white table ceremony performed by our 4th grade students. Members of our local Army National Guard brought a military vehicle to school during the school day. Students were able to get a hands-on experience and learn more about the vehicle's purpose when in service from 2 members of our local National Guard driving it. The vehicle then kicked off our car parade at 2:30 that afternoon. All students lined our school driveway as we cheered on veterans as they drove through the front of Kelly School. Patriotic music played and shouts of thank you were shouted loud and proud from our Kelly School students. It was clear that as we made a commitment to honor our veterans, it was also a wonderful opportunity for our students to grow in their understanding and recognition of all our veterans.
All right, so DePaulo students have also been working on activities in honor of Veterans Day. The grade 8 students wrote letters to veterans, first responders, soldiers that are currently serving, and also new recruits through the Operation Gratitude. Students also watched a short video about Veterans Day and discussed the importance of this holiday. Grade 7 students also compared Veterans Day to Memorial Day and created a bulletin board where they wrote responses to the prompt of why Veterans Day is important. Grade 6 students attended an assembly where a Southington veteran talked to them about collecting needed items for retired Connecticut veterans. Since the assembly, students have been bringing in toiletry items, gift cards, and cash donations for the Veterans Home in Rocky Hill. The DePaulo Cross Country boys made school history last Saturday by winning second place in the large school division at the state meet in Manchester. Competition was against hundreds of runners from nearly 40 different middle schools. So congrats to them. Last week, students in Spanish class at DePaulo learned more about the holiday, El Dia de los Muertos. It was an ancient celebration of ancestors from Mesoamerican civilizations, which dates back from thousands of years. One of the favorite traditions around this special time is the making and sharing of sugar skulls. Students learned about how families decorate their homes and the symbolic importance of those items that are used. Many students also made their own sugar skulls to take home. The lesson was a wonderful way to introduce what the holiday is all about and to appreciate the values that come into play through the practice of preparing and celebrating for this holiday. It shows the reverence that families have for their ancestors, as well as appreciation for simple, natural products that come from the earth to decorate and honor their loved ones. Finally, sixth grade students on the blue team at DePaulo had the opportunity to meet a real scientist this week. Through the Skype a Scientist program, students were able to meet Nina P. Nina is a paleoceanographer who is currently working in France but is from the Netherlands. She introduced the students to her work and how she became a scientist. She also talked about how rocks tell us a story that is 3.5 billion years old. For JFK, on Friday, 10/28, the girls' volleyball team played Joseph A. DePaulo at the annual Dig Pink game. All proceeds from the game were donated to the Side Out Foundation, an organization that provides research to lengthen the lifespan of patients diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer. After the varsity game, the team honored the memory of JFK parent Melissa Kosko, who lost her battle with breast cancer in October. 8th grade Cole and his dad were presented a gift in memory on behalf of the JFK volleyball team. Thank you to Mr. Ron Ingriselli and the Unico Club for their very generous donations in support of our Unified Theater program. We are thankful for Mr. Ingriselli and Unico for their years of support to our Unified Theater program. 8th grade presentations have also begun. SHS and surrounding vocational schools are in the process of visiting JFK to meet with our 8th graders and about the high school opportunities. We'd also like to thank our students who have collected over 975 non-perishable food items for the food pantry shelves at the Southington Community Services. Through their combined efforts of NJHS, Student Council, and Builders Club, with the help of our Social Studies Department, the food drive was a huge success. And finally, thank you to veterans Dave Brennan, Wayne White, and Lo Urso, who presented to our students today in honor of Veterans Day. We are grateful for their service to our country and their time with our students. Thank you.
Thank you, students. Does anyone have any questions for our students? Thank you, students. We appreciate everything that you tell us because we get to hear what's going on, and it's good because it's from your perspective. So thank you for that. Before I forget, if you are planning on speaking during the public comment, I would ask that you sign in at our computer over there with your name, your address, so that we have a record of it. There's computers over there? Okay. So, yeah, so if you're planning on speaking during the public comment, please sign in over there. Next on the agenda is communication from members of the board. Mr. Darrenowski.
Yeah, just briefly, it was heart-wrenching in some aspects. Kathy McGrath, who was a tremendous teacher at the high school. I was lucky enough to be on the school board at the time when we convinced her to become principal. And it took a lot of arm twisting, but she was, I tell you, she was in a perfect place at a perfect time and really gelled the whole staff and administration at the high school to what it is today. And but she was, I was sorry to see her retire. I was shocked to hear that she had passed away. But she was really a cornerstone of what the high school is today. Coach Orsini, when I was in high school, he was my football coach. And that was a few years back. But I have to say, those were the years when we used to have some memorable football teams. Unfortunately, I was not a major contributor to the team, but we did have some players. Vinnie Clements was one who ended up being a professional player in the NFL. But Coach Orsini was a great guy, and he stayed in touch with a lot of us over the years. Unfortunately, the last 5 or 6 years, between my age and his age, we didn't make a big connection. But he was another great guy, as well as his wife, who was also I think she was a French teacher.
Department chair at the high school at the same time. But yeah, time travels on and memories are still there. And but again, it's a sad day.
Thank you, Mr. Darrenowski.
I have a
IHS Rural Hampshire FFA holiday sale. They're selling their annual poinsettia cemetery boxes and holiday arrangements, and all the proceeds go to the FFA scholarship fund. So if anybody's looking to decorate their house for the holidays or a cemetery, contact Marion Standard. She's at the high school, and sale starts November 22nd. So always great.
And may I just say, I ordered geraniums.
Amazing.
I just got rid
Yes. Their stuff lasts forever. Those
forever.
kids are amazing.
They do wonderful,
Yeah,
wonderful.
They really do.
Yes.
So every year I get a wreath, and
They're
like
beautiful.
March, it's still alive. It's ridiculous, and
Yes.
it's just a great program. So
Yes.
I'm really excited about it.
Anyone else? Mrs. Carmody?
Yes, just that we all remember that tomorrow is Veterans Day, and that we all take a moment to thank all those that have served our country, that are serving our country, and that have brought us the peace and prosperity that we enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Carmody. Anything, Joe?
Oh, one more thing I forgot.
Yes.
I just want to say
Uh-oh.
There we go.
they're making fun of me. I haven't said anything,
Well, because we know better. Yes, Mrs.
but
Carmody.
I am going to say they are going to make fun of what I want to say. I just want you to all know that the girls' soccer team, and of course my granddaughter is on it, who gets her talent from me.
He even looks like you.
Thank you, Sean. They won their second round of the tourney, and so they're going on. I don't know when, maybe Saturday or Sunday. But our girls' volleyball team,
Field hockey.
and I think swimming, right, kids, and a swimming team, they've done very well. And of course, our football team is playing tonight. And tonight, the game was moved to tonight because of weather for tomorrow. And they are honoring, when a beautiful ceremony this evening, they are honoring the veterans at the football game. That is why Sean is leaving, because his daughter will be playing Conard, right?
Correct.
And Sean's daughter is one of the cheerleaders, and they're going to have something at halftime. So it's just some really neat stuff. But just remember, if you see my granddaughter, you to tell her talent comes from me.
Okay, moving on to the next
All right.
agenda item, please.
Is that okay, Mrs. Clark?
Oh, that's fine, Mrs.
Thank you,
Carmody. That's
Mrs.
fine.
Carmody.
Yes.
If I may just again, my son was competing at the middle school cross country meet, and from going to football games to going to the softball, again, like all the games that we play, you know, hearing input from other towns when our students go over, I have to say our students are always respectful. They always leave things better than where they found it. And, you know, again, I think that speaks to a lot of what we're doing in the community, and, you know, having that pride in Southington, and essentially setting the standard when we go places. It's been kind of fun to see as a dad, you know, with my son doing the same, you know, partaking in a lot of that stuff that the coaches are instilling. But it's just, I think it's special. I think it's a good thing that we're doing.
I will say I went to the Maloney Southington game last week that was held over at Falcon Field in Meriden. Besides, it was an outstanding game. It was such a good game. I mean, nobody needed to hang their head when they left, because it was just a really hard-fought game. But what really impressed me, when we were leaving, people from both sides were complimenting the other side.
Yeah, which is
you know,
great.
and it was not only the kids, but the adults were, and I thought, what a wonderful example for the players, for the students that were there, because as adults, we're setting the example, and the adults were saying, great game, and oh my gosh, and some proud dad was saying, my son did so, you know, it was just a wonderful experience. It was hard fought, but we all left knowing we'd watched a good game, and it was the sportsmanship. What we're showing our kids was outstanding. So
Great.
it was good. It was good. Okay, communications from the administration, Mr. Pepe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll continue with thank yous. Since the last meeting, we had our Red Ribbon Rally. And again, the the way the community comes together to embrace our youth, the safety net that is created. We had representatives from all across the community come out, volunteers, coaches, teachers. Mrs. Anastasia was there. Our board chair was there. Town manager, first responders, council people, Reverend Troiano did the MC. It's just, again, a testament to everyone pulling together in order to continue to take care and watch after our kids. So Steve and I both want to offer our thanks. Safety training occurred here at the Municipal Center on 2 different sessions conducted by Southington Police Department. We continue to partner with SPD. At this point in time, all central office and town employees have been and undergone the ALICE training modules. Take it a step further. Past Tuesday, November 8th, we had school security and safety, again, teaming with the Southington Police Department, Southington Fire Department, the town, EMS. Anastasia was able to observe a portion of the day so that our staff trained in the same ALICE modules. So very special thank you to the continued working relationship with our first responders in town. To offer, we have some recognitions for upcoming CAVE and CAPS conference. Congratulations to Mr. Daranoski, who is being recognized for the 20-plus year category, rounding out at 31 years. So you far surpassed that 20-plus.
Who's counting?
Mrs. Carmody, Mrs. Clark, Mr. Oshana are all in the 20-plus year category. And Terry and Colleen serving 14 years. And
We're old,
serving
Colleen. Get
11.
used to it.
That recognition will occur on November 18th for their service, so thank you. Mr. Venanci, again, Mrs. Clark, Mrs. Anastasio, enjoyed music of the night, and Mr. Venanci came in the next day just glowing about how incredible the talent, the spirit. So a big thank you for those that put up the band backers, the amount of time and effort they put forth in coordinating that evening is amazing. As our students mentioned, Ron Ingraselli and Unico, a $1,000 donation to the Unified Art Program at Kennedy Middle School, greatly appreciated. And last but not least, thank you for our referendum and the roofs for getting approved.
That's right.
That is a huge thank you to the community. And when it comes to our athletic complex, we will discuss further when it comes time for the capital plan in order to address the needs. That concludes the report.
Okay. Any questions of Mr. Pepe? Okay, thank you, Mr. Pepe. Communications from the public. If anyone would like to speak, please come to the podium, and if you would give your name and address.
Madam Chair, at this time, if I may excuse
Go.
myself.
Enjoy.
Enjoy. Take pictures. Okay. Hello.
I didn't think you recognized me with the
I
mask
did
on.
recognize you under
Okay,
that.
hello.
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Elise Krantz. I live at 44 Bridle Path Drive in Southington. I've been a resident of Southington for over 12 years, and I have 2 children in the school system, a 4th grader at Darnowski and a 7th grader at Kennedy. I'm here tonight as a follow-up to the email I sent on October 3rd when I asked the board to consider including the Jewish celebrations of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur as official school holidays. It's not easy to stand here to ask this of you. Speaking up and proclaiming I'm Jewish in many ways makes me feel a little like I'm putting a target on myself. Unfortunately, there has been a huge rise in anti-Semitism in recent years, not just nationally, but in the media and here in Connecticut as well. According to the Anti-Defamation League, anti-Semitic incidents increased by 42% in the state last year. And in the past 5 years, the ADL of Connecticut received reports of over 184 incidents of anti-Semitic harassment, vandalism, and assault. While the Jewish population of Southington may not be large, please know there are more Jewish students, faculty, and staff than you may realize. You can't tell just by looking at us whether or not we are Jewish, whether a student has a Jewish parent or grandparent, or if we celebrate the holidays in the privacy of our homes or at a local synagogue. For those who do not know, Rosh Hashanah is the Jewish New Year. 10 days later, the most holy of the Jewish holidays, Yom Kippur, is observed. This holiday requires a 25-hour fast for individuals ages 13 and older, from sundown the first night to 1 hour after sundown the following night. And every year, and always in the fall, when all students are working hard to acclimate to new classes and teachers and schedules, Jewish students' lives are disrupted as they are forced to choose between celebrating the two most important days of the Jewish year or remaining in school and ignoring their traditions. I know the superintendent is diligent about asking school leadership to avoid scheduling tests and events on these 2 days, for which I am personally grateful. But it's been my experience that not all teachers and administrators remember to follow this recommendation. A few years ago, an elementary school open house was unfortunately scheduled on the first day of Rosh Hashanah. And I have heard from other parents whose children have encountered missing everything from AP chemistry tests to class field trips on one of these 2 days. When my children miss school so that we can attend religious services with our community, I know it isn't an unexcused absence. It's technically excused. And Jewish teachers who choose not to work on these days are given paid time off, which is wonderful. But because our holidays begin at sunset, and often with a family meal in the hours leading up to the sunset, and they conclude the following sunset, it becomes incredibly challenging, even for the most hardworking students, to find the time to complete essentially 2 nights of assigned homework for each of these holidays. I know many other families care about this issue, both Jewish and not Jewish, but some were unable or reluctant to speak tonight. But we are here, and we do need your support. It's not easy to make a change like this. The superintendent has patiently explained to me it takes money and the coordination of many moving pieces to add 2 more holidays to our school calendar. And some of you may be concerned that saying yes to the Jewish holidays will cause a flood of other requests. You may ask, why not recognize the major holidays of other faith traditions as well? These are important discussions we should be having. Our schools are lucky to serve students from a range of religious, cultural, ethnic, and socioeconomic backgrounds. And the more our student population continues to grow and diversify, the more important it is to be proactive in making our schools a welcoming place for people of all backgrounds. But when a neo-Nazi flag is found at the high school the evening of Yom Kippur, or a student posts an anti-Semitic comment on social media, we do not feel welcomed. Instead, we feel hated and fearful. When you look at the neighboring districts who close their schools for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, you will see many familiar names. There's Cheshire, Hamden, Waterbury, Newington, Farmington, Middletown, Glastonbury, and West Hartford. By declaring Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur official school holidays, or at a minimum, formally prohibiting homework, exams, and official school events on the Jewish holidays, the board would not only be joining with our peers in actively choosing to support the school's Jewish community, but also making the powerful statement that at Southington Public Schools, being different isn't a disadvantage, but a reason to celebrate. Thank you.
Thank you, Elise. Is there anyone else from the public who wishes to speak? Anyone else? No? Okay. The next item on our agenda is the Policy and Personnel Committee. Mr. Pepe?
Madam Chair. Policy 5143, school employee reports of suspected abuse or neglect of children was revised to incorporate reports of sexual assault of children. The new recommended policy is renumbered as 4118.31 since the 4000 series deals specifically with personnel issues. The new policy contains updated reporting timelines and required annual electronic distribution to all employees. We also reviewed policy 5127, completion rates of the free application for federal student aid, as a new requirement focused on increasing the completion rate for students in grade 12. Sample regulations were reviewed and will guide the work of Southington High School administration for completion if the policy is formally adopted. Policy 5141.21, elementary and secondary welfare, health/illness, administering medication, was reviewed with no suggested changes. Alterations to the regulations were presented for the committee's awareness since they incorporate administration of an opioid antagonist for the emergency of first aid by a trained staff member. Policy 5144, physical activity, undirected play, reflects revisions based on recent legislation. The additional language provides guidelines for staff as to when physical exercise or undirected play may be restricted. It also prohibits school employees from disciplining students by requiring physical activity as a form of discipline during the regular school day. The maintenance, HVAC, plumbing technician job description proposed revisions align with the needed skill set as the position and technology have evolved. And an open choice liaison stipend was proposed for 2 positions funded with open choice grant funds. The positions will serve as liaisons between open choice students and families in the school system. The overarching goal is to provide a productive space for students enrolled in open choice who spend hours after school while awaiting transportation. These positions also designate coordination of transportation for our students for special community events such as the Apple Harvest Festival. That concludes the report.
Any questions? Anything committee members want to add? Mr. Darrenowski, no? Thank you, Mr. Pepe. Next item is curriculum and instructions. Mr. Bashewski?
So we had quite a busy meeting. So we actually went over a number of different things. So the first, Ms. Patton from Southington High presented curriculum for a new half-year elective course called Introduction to Psychology for Juniors and Seniors. Course primarily focuses on scientific study of an organism's thoughts, feelings. I think it's funny that we said organisms, but more like humanity, social feelings and behavior, and how these processes are affected by the environment, physical states, and mental states, which is pretty interesting considering the times we're in. The course is aligned with the national standards for high school psychology curriculum and is centered in embedded research techniques. The curriculum consists of 5 units titled Defining Psychology, Biological Influences, Memory, Personality and Gender Theory, and Mental and Physical Health. And from my understanding, this is a college level course,
Yes.
right?
So this is if students successfully complete this elective, they would move on to the AP Psych. So it's based on the curriculum from AP Psych.
Allison Forsman from Southington High School also presented a new course curriculum titled Classic Mythology, whom Mrs. Carmody was quite intrigued by. Geared towards seniors, students who successfully complete the course earn 3 college credits. The course consists of 7 units. What is classical mythology? The Andro and the war, Cleos and Nostos, Odysseus, who is Ovid and why did he destroy mythology? Who is mythic guy and why is he not a hero? And it more or less goes into the thought processes of sort of standard or classical mythology and how it's different than today. So essentially, it was kind of interesting in the discussion about, the I guess the standardized hero of the day versus, the heroes in these older stories, and again, how, I guess, their imperfections as well, sort of exploring some of those things. It sounds very interesting. I'm really excited to, I'm hoping to be able to sit in on one of the classes and get to see that in action. SHS General Chemistry, Lisa Daigle presented Unit Bundle 2, Bonding and Intermolecular Forces, which is an accelerated general chemistry class that examines how atoms hold themselves together in types of bonds, how they influence properties of compounds. The unit is comprised of 3 learning sequences titled The Can and the Congo, Water and Space, and Stalactites. Lisa described spending the summer researching stalactites in preparation to teach the course, and sort of speaking from her own personal venture doing that. Connects the previous unit in which students were introduced to the different elements and compounds that make up the smartphone, which again was pretty interesting. Zachary Willett presented the second unit in accelerated physics, in which students learned the why behind motion topics discussed in their unit 1, position, velocity, acceleration, or free fall, Newton's 3 laws, which help to describe how external forces acting on systems lead to constant velocity or changing velocity motion.
That was Mrs. Carmody's favorite.
That was her jam, quite.
That was your
definitely.
favorite, the
That was-
physics.
Favorite.
Yeah,
That was her
physics, yeah.
thing.
yeah.
And then the third about the universal law of gravitation, which can be applied to any 2 interacting objects. Let's see. And then Zach did a brief learning, teaching
Great
go.
though, Joe. He did a great job.
You did.
Do a good job.
You got it. So it was great.
It was good.
Amy Zappone, Director of Teaching and Learning, presented the unit for accelerated biology called The Chemistry of Life. In that, students will explore the phenomenon of how scientists may look for life on other planets using life on Earth as a model, learn about the characteristics of life, biochemical markers of life, and some of the chemical reactions involving life processes. Engage in hands-on laboratory activities, and explore macromolecule testing, data gathering, citizen science, and enzymatic function. K through 5, science leader Melissa O'Neill presented the last of the new K through 5 science curriculum, in which Unit 2, Grand Canyon Seashells for Grade 3 Science, which talks about, what the heck are they doing at the Grand Canyon? Grade 4 Science Unit 3, Energizing Everything. Grade 5 Science Unit 1A, Spectacular Sights in the Sky.
Joe, if I may say one comment.
Please
on
do.
that, please. Okay.
Yeah.
This was the end of what Melissa has presented to us on the new K-5 science curriculum. It has been so impressive. She's very impressive. The kids are so into it. I mean, the enthusiasm in the units has been unbelievable. They've done a wonderful job, really.
And to build off of that, it sounds like, parents have been very excited to share the experience. I guess kids are going home excited about the school. So again, a perfect example of
Great stuff.
building curriculum that's engaging and that kids can be excited about. So, so that was great. Let's see. Brett from middle school science teacher, he presented 7th grade 3rd unit titled Ecosystem Dynamics, which specifically discuss dynamics and biodiversity.
The
And-
orangutan,
What's that?
the orangutans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And claiming the future orangutans is in peril, and the purchasing of this is not true. Purchasing of chocolate, it's I think, wasn't it palm oil, or was it chocolate? But then palm oil is
oil.
used in chocolate.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And Brett's here.
No, it's
Where's Brett?
oh, where is he?
Got right in.
Hey, what's up, man?
Guess who's the power?
So again, like very fascinating, and another great thing of using something so simple but then realizing, that, again, the tentacles essentially of everything that we do, and just being a little bit more aware of that whole process. So in that, examine the ingredients in popular chocolate candies, learning about palm oil, how it's grown on farms, and how that affects rainforests, how rainforests can be taken down to then provide palm farming, how it's derived, grown at the equator, and then again, just very particular about land use, and how it's good for farming, not good for the environment, and then when you cater to the environment, now it's not good for farming. So again, trying to create that stasis, if you will, of trying to work within our environment.
But Joe, how impressed were we with the enthusiasm of Brett?
Oh,
My
yeah.
goodness. Can you imagine being, Brett, I can't see your face, but we were really, all of us, impressed with what you presented, because we didn't understand any of that until you did present it. But
Hey, now.
I didn't.
Speak for yourself.
I know what chocolate was, but that was about it.
That's the
But-
one thing he could have done, is he could have brought in chocolate to
Yeah, you
taste.
should have brought us chocolate. That would have really helped next time. But your enthusiasm, I can imagine being in your classroom, which I hate science, being in your classroom and listening to you, and the enthusiasm you brought to us, I am definitely certain you bring to your students. So thank you. It was a great presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, and I must say, I have not been to a curriculum meeting. In fact, I think that was my first one in all these years on the board. I was so impressed with everyone who presented.
Yeah, they're great.
I was impressed with your time management was amazing, because we covered so much in such a short time. And the best part about it was understandable to those of us who are not familiar with your subject matter, particularly Mrs. Carmody and physics. I just want to say that.
You
But-
didn't have to add that.
Yes, I did. So I thank you. It was really quite I'm looking forward to future curriculum meetings. So, and your enthusiasm is just
Great
absolutely
job,
amazing.
teachers.
Yes.
Great job.
Does anyone else have any questions of Mr. Bajewski? No? Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
Okay. The next item, the Elementary Facilities Committee meeting. Am I doing, who's doing that? You, me?
I think you should do it.
Okay, because I was there.
Good at it.
Yeah, I just have to find the report, if I may. What item number is that? 7. I'm a little slow. Here.
Flip the pages.
No, that's okay. We had a meeting. Our meetings had been staggered, and we had, I can't even remember the last time we had a meeting, but prior to the October 17th meeting. So we had to review everything over again with the SLAM redistricting scenario review, looking at what our registration is, where redistricting may or may not be needed. Basically, it was an overall review for the members of the committee. And our next step, because of the changes at the state level, we now have to discuss with the state what the costs are going to be. And then we're going to arrange for a presentation in front of the full board. So it was more or less, it was actually just a review of where we were, where we hope to be going. And we have to get everyone on the same page. So we've been a little sporadic in having these meetings, but now we're going to start picking things up. So that was our meeting. It was a brief one, but good. So any questions?
Yes.
Mr. Jaranowski?
This is the first I hear of the SLAM. Well, who are they and what do they do?
They were,
Presentation.
no, who was they had another name. It wasn't SLAM. It was down in Cheshire. They gave us the numbers. What was it?
I was
Yeah.
gonna
They're now part of SLAM. They were,
SLR,
no, it wasn't SLR.
Malone and McBroom.
Mylone and McBroom.
Okay.
Mylone and McBroom is
that's
now,
cool.
yeah, and that's now part of, they're now one SLAM. And SLAM stands for, I don't know what it stands for. But they're now part of that. So the people that did and it was back, when did we do that presentation? May of,
Slam presented?
yeah,
That was,
but,
That was
and they
May
weren't,
of-
but they weren't slam back then.
20,
2021, was it 21?
no, but they also did a refresh earlier this year, I thought.
yeah.
Was it May they did
May
it?
of this year, I
So
think,
this was yeah, it was,
'cause I hooked
we
up with
haven't
the
had the meetings,
potholes,
you
yeah.
know. So that's why we have to
So
get
so
back
the
up to
the
speed.
purpose was,
To talk about the student population numbers that we have.
okay,
That have, what has changed, what hasn't changed, looking at what we're doing with our elementary school buildings.
okay.
So that's,
Are we going to go forward and have a discussion on having a potential redistricting?
that's what, yeah, we have to talk about that. And now in light of what happened we have to look to see for the referendum for next year, what direction we're heading. And we haven't really come to any conclusion yet, which is why we're going to have another meeting and present to the entire board, because we're not there yet.
Okay.
So, and numbers change.
A lot of work, a lot of work.
It's a moving it's a
Yeah.
moving target.
I know.
So that's what we have to look at. And you have to look at the whole picture. And oh, by the way, then look at the changes that's going on at the state building department. And that just throws a whole, we thought we were headed in one direction, and then all of a sudden, the state building department changed. So now we have to get back to, okay, where are we going? How are we going to get there? And what are the numbers looking like? And working with the state, because we were advised to work with the state from the beginning moving forward. So
Okay.
that's where we're at. Okay?
Yep.
Any other questions? Let me get my agenda back out. Okay. You're supposed to be helping me with this,
Listen,
Okay, our next is our Finance Committee. Mr. Shanowski?
So we have actually two meetings to cover. We have the October
Okay.
24th and the November 7th meeting. I was actually not present for the October 24th meeting, so I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Mellett to cover that, and then I'll cover the November 7th meeting.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. We had our first meeting October 24th. First item agenda was the self-insurance report. We went through where the self-insurance fund stands after the 3 months ending September. We were 158,000 under the current year budget, but we're 534,000 higher in claims from the prior year, and that's what we were expecting. The second item from the self-insurance meeting was a discussion of the split of the financial obligations between the Board of Ed and the town of Southington. However, due to members that were not in attendance at the time, we put that on the agenda for the next meeting. So at this time, I don't know what our split will be when we're working on the budget, but we have another meeting next week. The next item we went through was simply a request to transfer money from one budget line item to another, moving monies from the guidance counselor line to social workers to better reflect the current staffing that we have at the different schools. And that will be a motion that will be coming up on the agenda in a few minutes. Then we had an update on the SMART funds, which were the meal assistance revenue for transitions that the state of Connecticut provided to the schools and to help schools and families transition from free meals for all back to the traditional pay for meals. Based on our projections, we will be depleting our allotment of those funds by November 30th. So we've sent out a notification to parents that we will be returning to paying for meals on December 1st. And we encourage any parents to fill out the free and reduced applications if it's applicable to their family. And so that went out a couple of weeks ago to all the families. The last item on our agenda was under the miscellaneous, and I updated the committee about a change to our federal Title I grant funding. And unfortunately, we were reduced by $256,000 for the current year. The reason I was told by the state and the federal grant contacts was that the poverty level in Southington had dropped from 5.11% to 4.97%. That small reduction in our poverty level put us under the 5% for government guidelines, and therefore we were not eligible for the targeted and education finance incentive portions of the Title I grant. So that took place for the current fiscal year that we're in now. And that will conclude our discussions from the October 24th Finance Committee.
Anyone have any questions?
All right, so I do have,
Mel?
yep, thank you. I do have a motion on the transfer of funds here.
Okay.
Move to approve the transfer of funds from the guidance counselor salaries accounts to the social worker salaries account as presented.
Second.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So, starting for the November 7th meeting, the first thing that we discussed was a sound attenuation proposal for JFK Middle School. So a proposal was presented by the Director of Operations to address the noise that some residents had complained about with the chiller being a little too noisy at the Kennedy Middle School. So we received a proposal from Trane, who is the manufacturer of those chillers. They actually proposed these two services here for both middle schools. Both proposals will keep our warranty in place. It will not overheat the existing units. The first part of the service proposal that they proposed was that they would install a hush cover acoustic blanket over the compressors and discharge lines and signs and oil separators. They estimated about a 5 to 7 decibel reduction, which would cost approximately just under $40,000, so $39,843 per school. So Mr. Romano did review that proposal, and Mr. Oshana and Mr. Darnowski have actually both visited those sites to observe that high-pitched noise. We also had a discussion about the noise and the results that could be obtained from that service 1. We also reviewed service 2, which would include an additional metal tent over the units for an additional 4 to 6 decibel reduction. At an additional cost of $61,874 per school. And that is something that the committee agreed that would be looked at as part of for a future renovation project. Let's see here.
And just to be clear, the service that will be part of the recommendation this evening is only service 1 at Kennedy Middle School.
Right. Yeah. That's exactly right. So the committee decided to move forward with the service 1 only at Kennedy, and it would be using the fiscal year 2021 non-lapsing funds. And then if additional noise reduction is needed for the future, we would look at service 2. So a recommendation was made to include service 2 on the capital plan to continue that conversation with the town. So I do have a motion on that, and I move to approve the sound attenuation proposal for Kennedy Middle School to Trane US Incorporated as presented.
Second?
Okay.
Um,
Any questions?
Just had a question about that. So in doing part, I guess the first service, right? And putting those on the existing apparatus, does that degrade faster without having that second portion, like the actual metal tent, if you will, above that, or it doesn't affect, like it's something that can.
It's a manufacturer recommended
Okay.
product, so it's meant for that purpose.
And then it's okay to be out in the elements and everything else. It's not so much that it needs that second piece.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
The next item that we reviewed was the Fortinet firewall and antivirus agreement. We received a renewal for our cyber insurance policy, which required us to have advanced controls in place in order to obtain a higher coverage for ransomware and malware incidents. We had our network manager work with our existing firewall vendor to expand our services to include this EDR, which is endpoint detect and respond. So it's an additional service to what we have currently. This type of coverage is typically very expensive. It's going to be installed on pretty much every device in our district. Our network commander was actually able to lock in a price for 3 years of coverage at a total price of $131,657, and that would be spread out over 3 years for the entire lease there. So that would be $43,886 per year for 3 years. We had a discussion about the coverage on what we are using and what is needed for that cyber insurance. Ms. Mellett stated that a few insurance companies offer cyber insurance to municipalities and districts, and there was some discussion around the actual vendor, Fortinet, and the reliability and their usage as an IT product. So the committee has generally supported the 3-year lease and acknowledged that the budgeting for this product after that three-year lease is over would need to be addressed in the 2025 to 2026 school year. So I also do have a motion on that as well. Move to approve the 3-year lease through SHI and DLL for the Fortinet and Fortinet or Forti EDR protection in the amount of $131,657 with 3 annual payments of $43,885.51 in years 2023, 2024, and 2025.
Second.
I have a question, if I may, to whomever. Does this include, so this is for all of our equipment?
Yes.
Is the town picking up any of this? Or are we splitting? Is this just this is just us? This isn't the town?
The town has already implemented service on their network. So
okay,
this is our network here and any devices that connect to our network, which is the end-to-end detect and respond.
So it's just us? Okay, all right, thank you. Any other questions? All those in favor? Aye. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
The next thing that the committee discussed was school entryway redesigns for the RFP on that. Mrs. Hill proposed to the committee that we requested that we use the fiscal year 2021 non-lapsing funds of up to $120,000 to award the RFP to evaluate the current entryways at Hatton, Oceana, South End, Strong, and Hatton, Oceana, South End, Strong, Thalberg, as well as Southington High School. Ms. Hill also informed the committee that the RFP was actually already drafted and posted on the school's website, which we had reviewed during our committee. And she had also noticed that the RFP requested a breakout of costs for each school and not just a lump sum cost. And we had some discussion around the statement of work and whether it was all inclusive and which tasks were going to be awarded for the RFP. So at this time, we are only looking at task 1 of the RFP to be awarded, and the board has the right to reject any and all proposals. Mr. Oceana has agreed and looked at the RFP and thought that it was thorough and inclusive of all the concerns that some of the board members had brought up. And the committee the committee motion to approve the use of that $120,000 for the year 2021 non-lapsing funds for this proposal. Again, I have another motion on that. Move to approve the use of non-lapsing fiscal year 2021 funds for the security entryway redesign at Hatton, Oceana, South End, Strong, and Thalberg, and Southington High School in the amount of up to $120,000.
Second?
James,
Yes.
question on that?
Yes.
That was seconded, wasn't it?
Yes, so you can ask your question.
We would be hiring an outside firm to be telling us, okay,
Yeah, they're going to come in and they're going to walk through all the schools
walk
with us.
through it. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Now, do we have a vendor secured, or this is something?
No, the RFP is out right now. Next week, Mr. Romano is going to meet with any interested vendors, and they're going to perform
Okay.
a walkthrough at each one of these locations so they physically see what they're going to be proposing pricing on. And then we would bring the award of that RFP back to the Finance Committee and then to the full board before awarding it.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Any other questions? No? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
I still have more here.
Yes, you do.
Well,
Keep
wait,
going.
there's more.
But wait.
One
keep
more.
going.
So there's 2 more, so I'll try
Okay.
to make it quick here. The next thing we discussed was the school lunch prices increasing for 2022 to 2023 school year. The committee reviewed the proposal to increase the meal prices by 25 cents for breakfast and lunch at all schools due to the current inflation levels and higher contracted labor rates. We did have some discussion as to see if the 25-cent increase would actually be enough to support the cost of the program. And Ms. Mellett did state that with the federal reimbursement rates and the profit from the prior year, we should be able to operate at this price point, and we will be monitoring those closely. And yeah, I think that's it. And let me get another motion on that here. Move to approve a 25-cent increase for school breakfast and lunch prices effective December 1st, 2022.
Second.
Okay. Any questions? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. All right, and the last one here, very quickly, we also reviewed the additional 457 plan options for employees. So we reviewed the current 403B and 457 plans available to our existing employees and a number of the active employees and the number of active employees contributing by vendor. In 2005, the district adopted the 457 plan through Voya, previously known as ING. And employees who are expecting a sick payout upon retirement are mainly looking to open a 457 before retiring to allow an additional tax deferral. Discussion was had about the possibility of allowing additional 457 options for employees. And we've noticed several employees who are investing with Equitable have inquired the business office about adding that Equitable 457 plan as an option. Just for reference, approximately about 58% of those investing in 403Bs are using Equitable as their advisor. And a discussion was had about allowing one investment firm over another, and if that would lead to potentially more requests and sort of opening up the floodgates, right? The committee agreed at the moment, to leave the options as they are for now. And Mr. Carson did inquire that if there was a way to replace Voya with Equitable, and we will revisit that in March. And I also, I don't have a motion on that, so that was it.
Okay. Any questions? Thank you. Thank you
Done.
for that report. Okay, next item on the agenda is the personnel report.
Move to approve the personnel report as submitted.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Old business, town government communications. Do you have anything, Mr. Pepe? Nor do I. So moving right along to new business, student data presentation. I will turn it over to Mr. Pepe.
Thank you. We have Amy Zappone, Director of Teaching and Learning, with us, Stephanie Lawler, English Language Arts and Social Studies, and Sarah Baranaskas, who is a new addition for math and science.
And welcome.
And they're going to run through some great information in terms of student achievement data.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Amy Zappone, nice to see all of you. We are going to start with just giving an overview of some of the performances from last year for student achievement and growth. The state of Connecticut has the Next Generation Accountability System, and it's a set of 12 broad indicators that demonstrate how well students do in our districts here and across the state of Connecticut. As a district, we then look at all of those indicators as well as other indicators of performance that are important to us and that align with our vision of the graduate. So today, the purpose of our presentation is to highlight and share some of those data indicators with you.
The video is showing it.
Bum, bum, bum.
Then we shall take a moment to see if we can adjust this.
Okay. So I was saying we will be looking at certain indicators tonight to highlight how our students fared over different academic indicators. The first two indicators that we are going to look at are students demonstrating mastery as well as exceeding mastery on grade level standards. And in particular, tonight we're going to look at English language arts, mathematics, and science.
Hi, everybody. So this slide provides you with an overview of achievement data in ELA. As a district, about 64% of our students met level 3 or 4 in English language arts and Smarter Balance. And you can see that how that compares to the state average of about 49%. The table below gives you a breakdown of the percentage of students at level 3 or 4 for each grade level across the district in grades 3 through 8. And I think it's important to note that last year's third grade students were in grade 1 in the spring of 2020 when we went home. And those of you who are familiar with first grade, that is a critical time in grade 1 where we are firming up those reading to learn or learning to read skills and preparing them to make that leap into reading to learn in second grade. This slide provides you with some historical data. You can see 5 years worth of district achievement data prior to COVID. And then for those 2 years, we don't have data to compare, but you can see last year's 21-22 results were very similar to, sorry, I have to take these off to see the chart now. You can see that in the 21-22, the percentage of students meeting level 3 or 4 is not very different from where we were 5 years prior to COVID. It is important to note, though, that the percentage of students in the does not meets range did have a slight uptick after COVID. So the Connecticut State Department of Ed has a classification system called the District Reference Group, or DIRG. And so districts are grouped together based on similar socioeconomic status of students. So this slide shows how Southington compares, how our achievement data compares to other districts in our DIRG. As you can see, we have the 6th highest achievement level in ELA out of 24 districts. So while the state takes achievement into account, it also places great emphasis on a growth model. So after students take Smarter Balance starting in grades 3 through 8, individual growth targets are set for all students. So there's 2 indicators here. There's the growth rate and there's the average percentage of target achieved. The growth rate is the percentage of students who met or exceeded their own growth target. So you can see some historical data here, as well as in 21-22, we had 38.4% of our students meet their growth target. That's slightly below the state average of 40.2. On the right side of the slide, we have the average percent of target achieved. And so while the growth rate is important, the state uses this second growth measure, the average percentage of target achieved, when they're calculating our accountability index, or as I like to call it, our district and school report cards. So they look at the average percent of target achieved, and just that's exactly what it means. This is a lot of math and tables and graphs for an ELA person. So basically in 21-22, on average, students met 58.4% of their growth targets. And again, that's slightly below the state average. Don't worry, I ran all the math by Mrs. Zappone several times. So this next one is how our growth data compares in our DIRG. And so while the achievement in our DIRG was high, we fell lower in our average percent of target achieved by students. I think it's important to note that it is quite a close range. We fell within the same couple of percentage points as most of the districts in our DIRG. And now I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Baranowskis, who's going to give you the same data as it relates to math.
Thank you, Mrs. Lawler. So I appreciate that she did all the heavy lifting on the slide, so I'm going to go through the data. It's the same exact format for math as it was for ELA. So as we transition to our Smarter Balanced performance overview for math achievement, we notice that the percentage of students who are meeting the level 3 or 4 proficiency is 58.4%, which is quite a bit higher than our state average of 40%. And then when you look at, you can see the breakdown, of our grades from 3 through 8. And again, highlighting that those third graders were in first grade in March of 2020. Here we can see the historical data for our overview. And as you notice, our total 58.4% of students meeting proficiency is pretty consistent as we go back to 2015. We just have a little slight dip after the 2019 assessment. Now looking at our DERG, we are actually the 4th to the top with our percentage of proficiency at 58.4%, with Stonington there way up at the top. Going back to growth data, we noticed that the state average for the percentage of students meeting their growth target was about 46%. And when we look at Southington, we notice that it's around 50%. So 50% of our students met their growth target. Then when we look at the average percentage of that target achieved, we are at almost 72%. So our students in Southington achieved 72%, about 72% of their growth target on an average compared to the state, which was 65%. The last slide that I have for you before I turn it over to Mrs. Apone is looking at our DERG data and where our percentage of target achieved was within that DERG. And I did want to highlight that again, when we look at the 4 districts that are they're just slightly above us when it comes within, I think, like 1 percentage point up to 2 percentage points. And we are there at the 9th to the top. I subitized that correctly. All right. I'm going to turn over to Mrs. Apone for science in high school.
Okay, so sticking with the math and ELA, we're going to transition into the high school level and look at some of the SAT data. So SATs are a little different in terms of scoring. It's not level 3 and 4 that is goal, but the difference is the English language arts piece, also referred to evidence-based reading and writing. The goal set for students is 480 and the math goal is 530. So the table that you see below is highlighting how many students met those particular goals. So if we look at the state for English reading and writing, we can see 56% of students met that state goal. And at Southington High School for English reading and writing, 70% met that goal. So a pretty solid increase from the state. When we look at math, we can see that, English reading, writing, compared to the mathematics, definitely a different number presenting there, still higher than the state, but certainly an area that we want to continue to grow and track in. And then the last column is showing the percent meeting both. So in the state level, 33% of students meet both goals for SAT. Southington High School last year, we had 44% of students meeting goal.
Can I ask you a question, Mrs. Apone?
Sure.
When do they administer the test?
There are different administration dates, but there's a Connecticut SAT school day, which I believe is in March. I don't know the exact date, but it's in the month of March for the whole school one. Students can take outside the window, but that's when the majority of Southington High School students have taken it, and this data is reflective of that date.
So could it be, so a student could be taking, say, the math, and they haven't had that class yet? Is that they haven't had the full math class?
So they would have had typically, right? There's a typical trajectory where they would have had Algebra 1 and Geometry preceding the SATs. Some students will have also had Algebra 2. It will depend. But based on their course selection, they may not have all of the exact same courses, but they should have the skill set to apply to SATs at that time.
Okay, all right, thank you.
When we look at, in particular, just make sure, The English language arts, so the English reading and writing test of the SAT, this is a historical view for you to see. So the blue bars, you can see pre-COVID, so 2018, we 74.5% were meeting that goal. We are kind of trending up. And then 2021, 67.9. So that was in the midst of the COVID time period. And now we're starting to trend back up post-COVID. So we hope to see those numbers continue to go in that direction, but not as big of an impact as some people may have predicted, but you can certainly see the dip in the implication. And then in terms of the DERG, again, comparison with other groups, you can see where Southington falls about 8th from the top in terms of the English reading, writing achievement on SATs. For math, that's the same visual. The pale blue bars are the percent meeting goal. So pre-COVID, we were hovering, just below 50. We popped up over 50. COVID times, we're back down a little under, and we're still falling under that 50th percentile mark meeting goal. So certainly an area, when we look at the two academic areas side by side, that's an area for growth and something that we're looking to do some curriculum revisions and improvements for. And in comparison to the DERG, closer to the top of the DERG, but generally when we look at SAT, math, and English reading, writing, there is a discrepancy between those meeting goals. So that is a typical trend in relation to other districts. All right, so English reading, writing, and math, that was kind of the overview of general achievement. We're now going to present some of the next generation science standard results. As a district, this is scored similarly to the Smarter Balanced Summative Assessment. So level 3 is meeting expectation, level 4 is exceeding expectation. So as a district combined, 63% of our students were at meeting or exceeding on the NGSS assessment. State average was 47, so a solid bump above the state. And then you can see the grade levels there. So this particular science assessment for the state is administered in grades 5, 8, and 11 only. They're the benchmarking years to see our progress. And you can see that 59% grade 5, 66 grade 8, and then 63% proficient in grade 11. Another thing to note, again, grade 5 students, we recently have been implementing new units for science that you've seen coming through. So prior to that, we did not have units aligned to those standards and really connected to supporting this assessment. So I think over time, we're going to begin to see the implementation pay off with student results in the areas of science. Historically, we don't have a large historical trend because this was only the second tested year that it counted towards the accountability index. The science assessment is newer for the state. There was one year previous, but it was a pilot and it was an optional year. So between the 2 years there, a very small variability. And I think that's something that in time with curriculum being implemented, we'll be able to move that area along. In terms of our DERG as well, we always like to show you the comparison. We're 6 from the top there and hanging right in with the top half of our DERG. The next 2 performance indicators that we're going to take a look at are our subgroups. So we want to always look at how are all students performing, but then how are subgroups performing so that we can look at the equity across the district. We are going to jump into how many students in the subgroups of special education, English language learners, and free and reduced lunch population students. So that makes up the subgroup. We're going to review some of the data on how many of them met and exceeded mastery for English language arts, math, and science. So if you look
along the bottom row, again, that's just a recap historically of the percentage of all students who have met level 3 or 4 on the English Language Arts Smarter Balance Assessment. If you go a row above that, that is where we break out the high needs. So that is our population, students with IEPs, 504, EL, and free and reduced lunch. So you can see prior to COVID, those 2 years prior to COVID, we were making some nice gains and trending upwards, and we have a slight dip at about 40% of our students in the high needs population meeting level 3 or 4. If you go to the very first top row, you'll see where we broke out the non-high needs students. And so again, you can see the historical data in 15-16 of 75% meeting level 3 or 4. We were making some nice gains upward, and a slight dip in 21-22 at 75% of our non-high needs population meeting or exceeding on Smarter Balance.
Looking at the same report for math, we notice that our high needs students had a nice steady incline until about 18-19, and then we've taken a slight little dip post-COVID. Compared against our high needs students, which are actually a little dip as well, making really great progress pre-COVID, and then just hitting that slight dip for, actually very slight, for 21-22. And then I'm also going to do science, the next one. Same looking data for our high needs students. We had that first assessment in 2019 at 45% proficiency, and then that post-COVID dip for 21-22, and a very slight dip for our non-high needs students at 74%.
The next performance indicator we're going to look at is attendance rate. So when we are looking at student achievement and growth data, it's also important to keep in mind attendance and how often our students are in school. With attendance rates increasing, that's loss of instructional time. So this table is showing you, I know the font is a little bit small from here, but the largest bar, the reddish bar, that is the percent of students attending school over 95% of the time. The yellow band is attending 90 to 95% of the time, and then the blue is below 90% attendance rate. So clearly here, just quickly visually, you can see in most recent years that highest bar has really dipped, and the 2 years that are the lowest are post-COVID. So we know that since the remote and hybrid learning occurred during that pandemic, we haven't been able to get those rates back up, but that's the work we're trying to do, making sure kids are here and here consistently and engaging them in the learning process. So that's just a snapshot of how things have evolved through the past few years.
So we shared a lot of data from last spring, and we wanted to give you a snapshot of where we currently are this fall. Although indicating the number of students receiving support through SRBI, the SRBI process, that's not a state tracked indicator, but we as a district data team feel that it's important for us to have our finger on the pulse of what's going on in our interventions. So this slide tells you, as of October 24th, when I ran the numbers, this is the number of students per grade level receiving intervention by either literacy specialists, math specialists, or tutors. SRBI is a fluid process, so based on the needs, students are receiving more and less support. So these numbers are changing all of the time, but this just shows you the need and the work that our literacy and numeracy specialists and tutors are doing every day for our groups of students. And again, you'll notice that that third grade class, so if I'm doing the math on the current third grade, they were in kindergarten when we went home in 2020. And again, another critical time in developing those early literacy skills. So they're working hard.
Yikes.
And then in the fall, We administer star reading to all we administer star reading 3 times a year to all students in K-8 and iReady Math to all students in K-8. And these are our universal screeners. This is the data that we use that teachers, building administrators, our specialists take a look at the data, and that's what helps determine how they're going to differentiate instruction for all students. So these numbers reflect currently in the fall the percentage of students who right now are hitting the benchmark in each of those areas across the grade levels. And that's it.
That last slide.
Yeah, I think that's the reason for showing this is all the work that's done throughout the year to get our kids to be successful. This paints the picture of in the beginning of a school year, this is where we are and this is what we're coming in with, and the amount of work and efforts it takes and all staff involved to move students and get them where they need to be. But this is the reality of what a fall benchmark looks like compared to end of year standards and the growth that occurs for students throughout the year.
Who determines what's on level or above? Is it the iReady vendor, or is that something that Southington has a benchmark for that we?
So the assessments that we use, they are from certain vendors, but they are either criterion referenced or normed referenced. So STAR happens to be a norm referenced assessment. So it's normed like peers across the United States. So they compare like peers, same grade, same developmental level. The iReady assessment happens to be a criterion-based metric that's based on end-of-year expectations as defined by the Common Core state standards. So those are the metrics that you're up against. So again, it's by the end of the year we want them to master them, but by beginning of the year, they're holding them against those standards. So those are the two different data sources. All of the district benchmarking that's out there falls into two buckets, either a norming system or a criterion reference.
So
Mr. Pepe.
our work constantly is assessing students where they are, when they come to us, where are they, and bringing them to where they need to be, and the interventions along the way. Last year, at the end of the academic year, every building, as well as all of our coordinators, put together 3-year transition plans, knowing what we were faced with coming out of the pandemic, knowing that we were going to be challenged. And so those 3-year transition plans focused on the SRBI process and what we needed to put into place in order to service our kids.
Mr. Darrenowski?
I know COVID had a major impact on all districts in the state, all over the country, I think. How comfortable or how confident are you that we're going to be trending, getting back on track? And I know we got a lot of things in the works, and you people have been troopers, trying to get things back organized. Is a confidence level out in the trenches with the staff that we have that is overworked as they are? Do you think things are going to be heading in a positive direction?
Yeah, I think what's hopeful is that if we look back at these slides, there was a dip, but it was not astronomical. There wasn't as much learning loss as per achievement and growth data than we might think and feel. The pandemic impacted students in many ways, teachers in many ways, staff in many ways, and we saw that slight numbers dip. But Mr. Darrenowski, what we're seeing is we're not too far off already with just 1 year post-COVID of moving in that direction of upwards. So another solid year of all of our educators with all hands on deck working hard. We're confident that we're going to get right back to where we were, and then we hope to surpass that.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Right, that's where we need to keep going. So we're right close to where we were pre-pandemic, but now it's about moving past that,
Good.
and it's a continuous improvement.
Okay.
And I think too, as Mr. Pepe said, there are things that we've all put into place. Every building has intervention blocks so that students are not missing core instruction to receive those specialized interventions. Our classroom teachers during that intervention block are pulling small groups of students who may be on level or above level. So it's about, when we look at that growth data, and it's about growing all of our students. So I think it's really an all hands on deck approach with our administrators, our teachers, our specialists, coordinators, tutors, everybody. I mean, it's all hands on deck looking at the data and trying to do what's best for kids and move every kid.
Great, thank you.
So I had two questions. In reference to some of these slides talking about the state average, I assume that's every single district reporting. Now, do we do averages of our specific DERGs to sort of see where that was? Because I would imagine that the numbers would be much closer.
So on the slides here where you can see the table bars,
Right.
our particular achievement is highlighted, but if you do look at the scale, and we have the ability to run this report, if you'd like the specific percentages for
Right.
each part of our DERG, we can get those. But if you do just look quickly across, we're looking at a 20% differential between here. So compared to the DERG,
We're like right in the middle.
yes, and the DERG data typically is higher than the state, which that's why we're all in that same grouping. So
Okay.
most of our DERG is above the state average,
Well,
but
and
we like
that's-
to show that.
That was more of my, like,
Yeah.
I find the state average kind of a useless number because it's not very helpful in comparison to, again, like our DERGs and
Correct.
things like that. I know that there's some pretty substantial low performers.
Absolutely.
that
We show
brings
it
it down.
only because part of our accountability index is derived from comparisons with the state.
Okay.
But to put into more perspective for our community, this is comparing like districts. So it is
Okay.
more helpful to look at that view.
Great. And then my second question, so seeing some of these higher performers, so Rocky Hill kept coming up. I think East Granby was on there for the science portion. Is there any sort of setup for our, I guess, whether it's administrative teams or for you guys to communicate with other districts and find out like what's working well, what's not working well? Because again, like these are the types of examples where I find like everybody gets put into their own little silo and we're all trying to scramble and do the right thing based on what the state of Connecticut's telling us to do. But then ultimately it kind of paints us into a box where we're not really able to, I guess, try new things and really go into the lab, and especially coming out of COVID, you know, again, like while I think this is great in the response of education, you know, again, the things that don't get talked about is, well, you know, how are kids socially? Like, are they emotionally inept now? And even though the education component is good, like we're taking on a lot more responsibility as school system. So, I mean, you know, again, like it's more, I think it's great that kids can take a test, but then it's, or try and demonstrate the mastery, but then it's another thing to, you know, again, like, can they actually apply it, right? So, you know, again, I guess that's, do we have anything set up where we work with other districts or?
So if you, every one of us, all our administrators, we are all linked broader groups.
Yeah.
And it's a constant sharing and stealing of ideas and who's doing what and
Sure.
how's it being applied. We constantly though focus on our going back to the growth model and taking a look at where our kids are and where we know we need to bring them. That is a focus that has been hammered home. And so the question before in terms of can we do it? I think if you ask any administrator or teacher, they're exhausted because they're faced with what they have to do. But we know that our primary focus is to bolster the tier 1 instruction. And to your point, also balance it with the social emotional aspect and growth of the child.
Right. And again, just trying to, thinking more outside of the boxes, you know, what are the other things that, you know, I always say, you know, good, better, and different, the families, right, are one of the most important teachers in a kid's life. So again, like how do, I find that we have essentially a whole militia of teachers in the parents, the guardians, all that kind of stuff. Like how do we best utilize them as well to, you know, maybe propel us back to, I see the growth and, you know, I think it's great. It's just, you know, how do we get to the top? I want to be Rocky Hill. You know what I mean? Like
You wanna be
I think
number one.
there's no reason, like Southington is awesome. Like we have a good supportive network from the teachers, the staff, the administration, but then again, our families, like every time we have any kind of parent teacher conference or anything, the parking lots are packed. There's a lot of people that are invested in these kids. So again, just me sort of spitballing different ideas or different thoughts here.
We have just come through an extraordinary time. Nobody can argue that. And now we have to deal with bringing our kids to where they need to be. And I'd like to thank you all and the staff that is looking at every child individually. I mean, these are scores, these are all of our kids, but you're looking at each child individually to see what that child, that one particular child needs as far as intervention, to your, whatever support that they need. And I thank you for doing that, because that's how we become successful, is to get each child to where they need to be. So, thank you. Thank you for this. Thank you for this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next items on the agenda, these are just first read, so we are not, okay, so 10B is policy 5143, first read, policy 5127, first read, policy 5144, physical activity, first read. But we do have a job description that I will need a motion for. Yes,
Yeah. Move to approve the job description as presented.
do I hear a second? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. We next have the SHS Introduction to Psychology, first read, the classical mythology, the chemistry, the accelerated physics, Mrs. Carmody's favorite, accelerated biology, science grade 3, unit 2, science grade 4, unit 3, science grade 5, unit 1A1, science grade 7, unit 3. And those are all first reads. So if you have any questions regarding any of those curriculum changes, please refer to either Mr. Pepe or Mr. Pashewski. Next item on the agenda, the capital improvement plan, first reading.
Just anybody, during, review it, just questions,
Yeah,
come
okay,
back on the second reading.
Send them in.
okay.
We actually will be meeting as an administration to revisit the capital plan based on the recent referendum results, and we'll bring a plan back for the December meeting for a first read.
All right, so I think what we would need to do then, because of the referendum, I think we would need to table this first read.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so can I have a motion from,
Move to table.
Table.
okay,
Second.
Second.
okay. Motion is tabled till the next meeting.
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Yes,
Under letter E, there was also the open choice liaison stipend, which is a new.
oh, I'm sorry, I missed that. I am sorry, I missed that. Thank you, Mr. Pepe.
You should
for-
be punished.
I think I've already been punished.
She was
enough.
punished already. She was
Not
pre-punished.
enough, Colleen.
I'm
punished
punished
her.
already.
enough.
Thank you.
Her broken wing.
My broken wing is my
Not
punishment
enough.
for missing that. Could I have a motion then for the open choice liaison stipend position, please?
So moved.
Second?
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Pepe, for catching me. Next item on our agenda, 10P, a superintendent's annual report. Have we all taken a look?
What was it? I'm sorry. I'm
Superintendent's annual report,
Yes.
which is one of my favorite things. Yes, it is long. However, it gives us so much information about our schools, about what makes each school so different and so proud.
Should be published.
Thank you.
To the
It should
public.
be, we need to share this with the community because it's just such a wonderful document of everything we do, and we need to share it.
We say that every year, Colleen, but we really, really
Well,
should.
we're gonna try to do better.
Well, this is the third year in a row that it is so
Well done.
well done. It's not
Yeah.
a splatter shot of it's organized. You know, every school is written in the same manner, you know, with the detail, and I mean, it's very easy to follow.
Yeah, I want the public to read that.
Yes.
I wish we could find a means of, I don't know how you get that out there.
I mean, I know a guy that works in a newspaper over here.
What?
So
We have a,
there's a,
I think what we
reporter?
need, yeah, yes.
You do have the
Mrs.
report?
Carmody. Oh,
Mr. Menancy does.
Mr. Medina.
So I'm
Mr.
kind of like
Medina, all
saying,
right.
please get this out here. It's so wonderfully done. Okay.
Nancy has a plan.
Thank you. I'm not trying
Nancy-
to put you on the
She's not
spot,
gonna
but thank you.
She can't hear me.
Terry Carmody has a plan.
No, Mr. Medici does have a plan. Mr. Pepe, if you would like to speak to that.
Mr. Menancy's intent is to push it out to the public because it really does illustrate the incredible work that occurs in each one of our buildings, led by administration and teachers.
No. So we're gonna get this out because it's just such a wonderful snapshot
Every year, Colleen.
every year of our schools. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the annual report is submitted. Do I
So
have a
moved.
motion? Okay.
Don't forget, we have one item we added. Would you have, are we there? No.
No,
What?
no, we're not there yet.
Okay, sorry.
Not there yet. That's okay. That's
Getting
okay.
excited over there.
She's all excited. And Mrs. Anastasio is going to second that?
Okay, sure.
Okay. Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next item on the agenda, superintendent's proposed goals.
I'd like to table this until the superintendent can be here, that we can address it directly with him, since they're his goals.
I
Okay,
second that motion.
then the motion is tabled till our next meeting.
Till
We
next
have
time.
one more.
Yep.
Mr. Darrenowski?
Yes, move to expel student 2022-2023-1 as per recommended by the superintendent.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. And Mr.
No
Darrenowski?
way.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody. Meeting.